everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Spurs, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today I have a brand new filmmaker with us. He has a new short film out that I actually saw and it was fun. It's called 3 a.m. I have Ricardo Albaran. Ricardo, pleasure to meet you, my friend. Thank you for coming to Horror Room.
Yeah, thank you so much, Travis, for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm super excited, so thank you.
So tell us a little bit about 3 a.m.
Yeah, so 3 a.m. is a short 5-minute horror film that I released earlier this month on October 1st. It is about a college student who goes to work in a computer lab really late at night, and spooky things start happening around at 3 a.m., as you can imagine. So yeah, it's my very first short horror film. So I've just been very excited at the reception that it's gotten so far and hearing people's reactions to it. And it's just been such a blast. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I watched it, and and I definitely enjoyed it. Once 3 a.m. hits, some weird shit starts happening.
That's right.
So what gave you the inspiration for 3M?
Yeah, so this short film was created in a class that I took earlier this year. I'm based out of Chicago, so in my day-to-day, I do something completely different. So I work in the field of healthcare, public health. So for the last 10 years, that's what I've been focusing on in my day-to-day. Currently, I'm a management consultant in the healthcare space. So I got a lot of experience basically in healthcare. I received my graduate degree in public health, and ultimately just kind of continued on this career path. But it was up until earlier this year where I decided, like, hey, why don't I just jump in and try my hand at filmmaking? It's a passion that I've always had, and it's an interest that I've always wanted to pursue. Like for me, it was one of those things where I thought I wanted to do, someday. But early this year, I'm just like, well, why not this year? Like let's just jump right in. And for me, I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of horror films. So whenever I watch, films, it's typically horror films. That's typically all I watch. So earlier this year, I decided to take I went on Google. I found a local organization here in Chicago called Chicago Filmmakers, where they offer adult learning film classes. And it's like on a wide range of topics. The one that I took was Introduction to Filmmaking. So in that class, I signed up for it. There was about 12 students there. And one of the assignments for the class was to, practice writing a 3-page script. So that's where I just, wrote 3 a.m. And I wrote it just based off of my own experience in grad school. So for me, I spent really, really long nights in the computer labs, just because for me, I was a night owl. And I would, I would go home, sometimes at 2, 3, 4 in the morning because it was a 24-hour computer lab. So for me, I thought about, that experience and then also my love for horror. So I made it kind of focus in the horror genre. So I wrote the script. The professor really liked it, and he split the class up into two in half. It was 6 and 6. He chose my script out of 2 to actually film during class. So we spent a series of 2 classes at the very end of I guess like not the semester, but like the class. The last 2 classes was really focused on just filming it on location. So we filmed it, so that's a really long-winded answer of how it came to be.
So have you thought about expanding on 3M?
Yeah, so it's been such a blast just first putting it together and then just releasing it out to it like publicly. Since this is my first time, I was just so incredibly nervous because this is something that I worked on with the team, and then I worked on the post-production for it, and a lot of feedback that I'm getting is whether why don't I consider pursuing a full-length feature of 3 a.m. So that's currently what I'm working on right now because I think it's a great idea. And for me, since I love horror films, I noticed that 3 a.m. is often referenced within horror films. like 3 a.m. The Witching Hour. But I haven't come across, I mean, maybe it's out there, but I haven't come across a film that actually tackles 3 a.m. head on. That's just around 3 a.m. So yeah, so for me right now, I'm currently working on turning it into a feature-length film, or that's kind of one of the routes that I'm pursuing. So yeah, I'm really excited to expand this universe that I created in this 5-minute short.
Nice. So have you submitted to any festivals?
Yeah. So when I finished 3 a.m., I showed it to the instructor of the class, and he gave me advice just because this is all completely new to me. He thought that one thing that I could do with this short film is to submit it to film festivals, or I could just post it publicly online on YouTube and just try to get as many folks to see it. Just since this is my first kind of introduction and entry into filmmaking, so I decided, like, why don't I just do both? So I submitted it to a ton of film festivals, and I've just been really surprised and amazed and just completely blasted how many of them have accepted it into the film festival. Right now, I think that as the latest count that I had earlier today, I think it's been accepted to about 18 film festivals so far.
That's
Um, yeah, so it's been such a whirlwind, just because I'm really getting experience in navigating the film festival circuit for 3 a.m. and at the same time it's already available on YouTube for folks to check out and see, and just seeing the reactions online has been great, and even some people are doing like reaction videos to it, which has been super funny to see. So yeah, so it's been quite a ride so far, and I'm just truly happy at kind of the progress that it's had just in the last like 3 weeks or so.
But it definitely reminds me of I've never experienced it, but I've seen like videos of people wearing like the VR glasses and doing like the haunted walkthrough. It kind of gives you that kind of vibe, especially once it hits 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just the lighting, the eerie music is definitely has you on your heels. Like, what's about to happen?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's a decision that I made, or that I knew I wanted to do when writing the script. So when I wrote this, 3-page script, I had the vision in my mind of what the film was ultimately going to look like. So after I wrote it, I developed, one of the other exercises in the class was to develop like a shot list. They kind of taught us how to do that. I knew that once it hit 3 a.m., I really wanted to shift the film to a more kind of POV type of kind of shooting. And for me, I'm just one of the subgenres within horror that I completely love is just like the found footage, that style of filmmaking. Like I love a lot of found footage films out there, and I really wanted to just incorporate that into 3 a.m. So the first half is more kind of uh, shot in a traditional way, and the second half it really transitions more to POV, and that was more so just because I love that style of filmmaking, and then also I felt like you know once 3 a.m. hits, I really wanted to put the audience into the main character Steve's seat, or from his perspective, and have the main character and then also the audience navigate the same thing and having the same viewpoint. So that's kind of the approach that I took with filming it, and yeah, it was just such a blast when we actually got the camera and tried to kind of film it in person. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's scary because you can only see it's in that found footage range, but a little more limited, where you can only see what's in the main character's cell phone light.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't see everything else. So the unknown is there. You can only
Mm-hmm.
see what's directly in front of them. Like,
Yeah, that's exactly right. And he ultimately has to go from point A to point B, which is he's stuck. He wakes up in the computer lab without the lights out, and then at the very end he has to navigate the situation where he has to exit. So he took it in the building, and that's the building that we actually took the class in. And that building that I think there's just, I mean, I'm sure there's like emergency exits, but there's like one central exit. So that's kind of the path that he had to go to. But yeah, I just really love that style of filmmaking, it was a bit of a challenge for me, you know, in post production, because we shot a lot of footage, you know, in that hallway. Like once 3 a.m. hits, once the light goes out, you know, we shot a lot of additional footage that didn't ultimately make it to the final film. But I knew that I wanted to, you know, shoot that footage in order to really create like a more like a linear kind of shooting style. You know, make him, you know, wake up in the computer lab, go through the hallway, the staircase, and yeah. So it was a challenge to, you know, cut those pieces together to make it kind of flow smoothly, and make it as realistic as possible, but then also find a way to build tension.
Yeah.
You know, as he's walking through the hallway. So that was something that, you know, I was completely learning as I was, you know, editing the film and working with the color and the sound. So that was a big challenge for me in post production, which took me many, many months to do.
So is it hard to? It sounds like it. This is hard to. I'm assuming it's hard to make a short film because you're having to put a lot of information story, but it's not that much story, but put a lot of information, scares, and get your point through in a short, timely fashion. Was that tough to do to get all this into 5 minutes and have the audience also scared out of their minds?
Yeah, it was, because I think, you know, one of the things that I love about short films is that it's just how quick they are, and you
Mhm.
know, they build a story, and it really gives you a punch at the very end, or like throughout, where it scares you. And for me, like the one that I'm thinking about is you know, like the short film Lights Out. Like that one, I think is like an hour, a minute and a half or 2 minutes, something like that. Like really, really short, but it, you know, it gives you the story and it gives you the scares. And for me, I knew that I wanted to, you know, make a short film that um where it was, you know, under like about 5 minutes or so, just because I feel like these days people kind of want quick content. And you know, typically I personally feel like, you know, if a short film is like 15-20 minutes and you post it online, you know, people might not want to invest that much time into see, you know, hoping that you know, it's scary, versus like, you know, it's a short horror film and it's 5 minutes. So the scares will come much quicker. But that was the challenge, because you know, I knew that I wanted to create a film where it has some story. You know, I created the character of Steve and the character of Megan, um and also kind of balance, you know, providing like some type of kind of backstory to them as to like what exactly they're doing there, but then also make sure that the scares come like, pretty quickly, and then they come like about like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes in. So that was a challenge. So for me, when I was editing it, you know, after I finished the course, I really went through so many drafts of this short film, because I feel like the scares just weren't hitting, or I was focusing way too much on the characters. So I'm really interested to see how, you know, once I get to the point of filming like my first feature length film, how that's going to be. But it was quite a challenge to do this short film.
No, you actually mentioned something about you're not going 15 minutes but going 5 minutes because of people attention span. Isn't it crazy now that people attention span are so short? Like if it's not 5 minutes, people tune out, especially the young. I'm 41, but I'm saying like a little bit younger than me, 30 and 40s. I mean 30s and
Mhm.
20s. If it's not all given to them in 5 minutes, they completely check out.
No, and that's exactly right. And for me, I just feel like it's, you know, really, really unfortunate. I mean, for me, I'm 33. So like, you know, I appreciate a really good 15-20 minute short film. But it's funny because one of the other approaches that I did with this film, I guess like the marketing of it, is I also uploaded it completely to TikTok. You know, I think TikTok, you know, for me, my primary focus was uploading it on YouTube and submitting it to film festivals. But TikTok is just like a whole nother kind of juggernaut on its own, that I knew I wanted to see, you know, like, hey, if I post it on there, you know, what'll happen? So I posted it on there, and it's gotten like so many views. Um, the only thing is that, you know, some of the comments that I got, or that I've gotten so far, is, you know, people are saying like, oh, it took too much, it's taking too much to get to the scare, so I'm gonna skip it, you know. So and like this was like, you know, it takes
Like
like two
5 minutes.
minutes like it's just 2 minutes. So
But I mean, I just noticed that even as a YouTube creator, um, people are going towards the younger generation, 30 and younger. It's shorts. Like they can't
Mhm.
watch a full length video anymore. That's
Yeah,
where we're
that
going.
yeah, I mean that's exactly right. And for me, like I'm just curious to see like how, that's gonna change in the next 5, 10 years. Is that gonna, push, filmmakers to try to create much more shorter content that they're currently creating? Like I don't know. Um, but for me, I think like, one of the other things that I'm doing apart from, turning 3 a.m. short into a feature length film or a script is to continue to, create more short films, like while I'm kind of working on the script as well. And for me, I'm my goal is to keep it within like the 5, 10 minute kind of range. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that people's attention spans has just like, it's not that much. So yeah.
It's gone. Yeah, it's completely gone. But because when I clicked that video, I saw 5 minutes for a short movie. I was like, this is gonna be interesting. How's it going? Trailer or like is this gonna and like no, you were able to boom, boom, boom in 5 minutes, which is
Yeah.
because most shorts that I've watched from filmmakers are somewhere between that 20 to 30 minute range.
Hmm.
It seems to be a nice sweet spot.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you were able to knock out everything in 5 minutes, and I was fulfilled. I was entertained the whole entire time. So, so maybe
Yeah.
I'm getting a short attention span now.
Oh no,
I
no,
hope
but
not.
no, but I think that that was the purpose for me, is that I wasn't trying to. I think like the main goal was just to create something really really short, that it would be just like a fun watch, for folks. Like it doesn't get too deep into like the backstory. Those are also kind of feedback that I've gotten, is that I wish I would have learned a little bit more about backstory about what's happening, or kind of why it's happening. So it doesn't kind of get too deep into the details. It's just like a quick, a 5 minute, entertaining ride. I like to describe it as. But yeah. Mhm.
And I have a question. It's been a second since I watched it. I don't know if it's just spoiling anything, but there was two classmates and they were talking, and the woman did she say something about the building was haunted or something? Or no?
Yeah, yeah. So she says, like one of the students is just like, like I'm beat, like I'm ready to get out of here before stab lab hour, and then she's like, like my boyfriend never wants to come with me here with me, but I've told him time and time again that it's just a stupid ghost story. So for me, like I've added, to this short film, like very very kind of small subtle details throughout the entire short film that
Mhm.
folks might not pick up. During the first or the second watch, but there's like details sprinkled throughout that try to hint at like what's actually going on here. Um, so yeah, so I think that that's kind of like the way that I incorporated it into the script, because I knew, like, for me, I'm also a person that, I love horror, and I also like to know like the small details, or I notice the small details. So for me, like I try to sprinkle those throughout. um but yeah, I think, and the two actors back there, those are my other classmates that
Oh, really?
yeah, they're in the class with me. So the two characters, the two students in the back were my classmates. Megan is my classmate, and they're the ones who are also like were helping me shoot the film. So all of us like came together and we shot it. So it was 5 of us. Um, so yeah, and like all the equipment that we used to shoot, like the camera, all the audio equipment, like the organization provided it for us. So that's why like this film was also like made for like very very little money. I think like $250 or something like that, if you remove the expenses for the equipment. But yeah, it was just kind of like using what we had available to just kind of make it come together.
Now, if I giving away anything, there was like a little statue of an animal there. How did you get its head to turn around?
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the things that I really love about is when horror films use like a lot of practical effects.
Mhm.
So when we got to shooting that scene, one of my classmates, Travis Wright, who was the student, behind, in the earlier scene where Steve, like he's sitting right behind Steve, the character of Steve. So Travis Wright was behind the camera, and during that whole kind of series of scene, that scene, or those shots, he was behind the camera, and I told him like, kind of what to do. And I told him just to, be creative, just you have the liberty to just, shoot, whatever it is that you want, during in this hallway scene. But all that I know is that, scary stuff is about to start happening here. So you decide what happens. So the my other classmate Elisa, who was the second student, who said, my boyfriend never wants to come here, that whole dialogue. She brought an owl, that owl from home. She's just like, hey, like, I have an owl. I think it could be scary. Like, should I bring it? And I'm just like, sure. Like, we'll find a way to use it. And now it's become like the center of the whole film, and the poster too. But so she brought the owl over, and then we just placed it on the table, and then they just kind of did their thing. They shot it, and the way that they did it was, Lisa was kind of, she was crouching, and she had like, so she could be like out of the frame, and she had her hand on the owl's like head like this, and like the owl head like moves on its own. So like I don't know how they did it, but they timed it perfectly where she just move the owl's head to the side, and like she's like crouching, and then like the camera was on the owl at the precise moment. I think that was like one take. Like I think they did 2 takes of that.
Wow.
And we used the second take, and in the editing, when I was editing the film, like you can actually see Lisa, like her like her. So I had to kind of zoom in a little bit on the frame to make sure she's not in the frame, but they timed it really, really perfectly. And I think I feel like that's the spoiler alert. That's one of the scares that I personally feel like the most effective in the film.
Yeah, it definitely was. Now, are you going to see, man? I hate doing these interviews. I feel like I'm gonna spoil something. But now, are you when the full length feature? Are you going to the character that we see at the end? Are you going to expand on who that character is?
Yeah. So right now I'm in the early stages of kind of thinking of an idea for a feature length film for 3 a.m. I'm working with a few folks, just because for me, like, this is my first time also, this short film was also my first time, writing a script. So I feel like, hey, like if I want to turn this into a feature, I feel like this is a good opportunity to make a film about 3 a.m. Why don't I work with someone who's a little bit more experienced than I am? So right now I'm working with someone to really kind of flesh out the details and the story of kind of what a feature length film of this can look like. I feel like, those characters of Steve and Megan, they could show up in the feature length film. But one of the things that I really want to explore, not just in this film, but then also in my future films, is more kind of horror that is rooted in, like Mexican American culture. Just because for me, like that's, for me, I'm Mexican American here, first generation, and there's really limited kind of horror films that kind of shine and highlights Mexican American culture, and like there's some good stuff out there as of recent. I saw like the movie Satanic Hispanics recently, which was really awesome. But for me, like I really want to incorporate that, and I think a lot of like Mexican traditions are really superstitious when it comes to 3 a.m. So I'm just like, this is like kind of like a perfect match. So, but I think those characters could show up in some form, but I feel like right now the idea is to kind of center it around that.
Check out my interview with I can't think of his name right now, but the movie is called Ente. It was shot in Mexico. It's a Mexican found footage, black and white. It's great.
Nice. Oh, I have to check it out. I have not seen it.
Yep. Check out the interview and the movie Ente. It's streaming free on Tubi. But
awesome.
Yeah. All right. So big horror fan. What were some horror films that you grew up, or horror series that you loved?
Yeah. So I'm immediately, my favorite horror film of all time is The Exorcist. I just feel like that movie is, I watched it at a really, really young age where I probably shouldn't have been watching it then. But I remember when I first watched it, like it just left such a lasting impression on me. Like I was so terrified, and I was just like, it just really, really scared me. And I remember really vividly the feeling that I felt when I first watched it, and it stayed with me, into adulthood. So, recently, I think it was playing in theaters for like the 50th anniversary or something like that. We went to go watch it. So it was my first time, seeing it on the big screen, and it had the same impact that it did for me when I was a kid. So, The Exorcist is like, top of the top for me. I also, like I mentioned, I really, really love found footage films. The Blair Witch Project is a huge, huge inspiration to me. Just how they were able to make such a scary film with such a low budget. It just, that's one of the inspirations that kind of led me to want to pursue filmmaking this year. I purchased like the book. I think it's called like 8 Days in the Woods, where it documents, um, you know, exactly how they were able to film the Blair Witch Project. It has interviews. It has like the small little details of exactly how they did it. It's just really, really great. Um, as a kid, I also like watched Goosebumps. I think that was always
Fine. Fun stuff.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So Goosebumps was also like a big like I would watch that all the time. Um, yeah, so I've always been a lover of horror since I was young, and I've just been so inspired by it, over the years, and even some more recent, releases have really, really inspired me. Like I know we just went to go see Malibu Horror Story, was just released a few weeks ago. I think that was good. There's a film called The Outwaters that was like kind of found footage. Was really, really great. Um, Skinamarink was also released this year. That one's really polarizing with people. Some people hate it, some people love it.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it, and I think I really enjoyed it because I watched it in theaters. So like
Yeah.
the audio really packs a punch with that one. So yeah, I think for me, like the found footage kind of genre is where the subgenre that I love the most in horror, and kind of where I kind of see myself living as a filmmaker. I mean, I'm sure I'll expand outside of that, but first and foremost, I think it's found footage.
And it's making a comeback right now. So I'm a found footage fan as well. Of course, the Blair Witch came out. I got it on VHS like when I was in high school, and I loved it. Even though a lot of people hated it, I loved it. And then it came a time that it was nothing but found footage coming out, and then got watered down. And for like the 10 years, there was no found footage. 10, 15, 20 years maybe, there was no found footage. And now found footage is making a resurgence and is kicking ass. I mean, there's a lot, especially the indie, there's a lot of great indie found footage movies out there.
Yeah, like I know, one of the big inspirations for me is also like Paranormal Activity. How they were able to, really revive that, and also like again like a really low budget. So I think for me, like that's the approach that I really want to take with a feature length film for 3 a.m. is to incorporate kind of that POV found footage kind of style of filmmaking, and make it on a low budget, but make sure that it's scary as well.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like I feel like I have I'm such a huge fan of horror films, and like for me, like I really want to make something that like I would want to see, and that scares me. And I feel like these days a lot of horror films, like they're just, I don't know, I just feel like they're not as like they're not pushing kind of the limit of scares. They're a lot more kind of commercial, and they really have to kind of tone down the horror in them. And for me, I really want to kind of push that a little bit. So yeah.
Now, one last question. Do you think it was beneficial to go take that filmmaking class? Because now with any filmmakers, any filmmakers are, which is amazing that you can have no experience, grab your cell phone, and just make a found footage movie. But do you think having some kind of training or taking a class definitely helps you benefit in filmmaking?
So I know that it for sure helped me. So for me, like I like like I mentioned earlier, like I didn't go to school for filmmaking. Like my graduate degree is in public health. But just from taking this like one class that was for 8 weeks, it really introduces you to, filmmaking kind of theory and a lot of, what you actually do in practice, like in the real world to like make a film. So, one class was focused on, how to write a script. You're not going to cover absolutely everything, but it's enough for you to get started. One class was focused on, like editing. You won't know everything, but like it's enough for you to get started. So for me, it really helped me, and I would really recommend folks, who want to pursue filmmaking, who haven't yet, to just search for local organizations around where you live, because there's so many resources available. If you want to take classes to, get started in a more kind of structured way. But on the other hand, like I personally, you also don't need to take a class. I'm thinking about a lot of the work that I did in post-production for the short film. A lot of it, as I was editing the film and I was working on like the color and the sound design, I was like learning as I went. So, I pulled up, Adobe Premiere Pro, I put the footage in, the sound in, and I just kind of got to work. And there was a lot of, YouTubing and Googling, YouTubing tutorials on like, how do you make the audio go from like your right ear to your left ear, and I use that at the very the final scene of the film. And so yeah, so all that's to say is like there's resources out there, that can really kind of push you to create something. And it just takes, just get up and do it. Really.
All right, so now I'm gonna switch to the fun part of the interview. All right. So
Yeah.
2 random horror questions. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. First one. Which iconic horror character, doesn't have to be the villain, could be a final guy, final girl, could be somebody, a victim, do you feel like you relate to the most?
So I don't mean to like, okay, so the first one that came to mind, and I probably like should put a little bit more thought into this, but the first one that popped into my mind was Carrie. I think for me, like I'm a like a growing up, I was like a queer kid, going to like, through grammar school and high school, the usual story that you hear of like being bullied and stuff like that. So I think when I first saw Carrie, I really related to her, just the all of the bad things that she kind of went through her experience in school. But I mean, ultimately, she ended up being like, murdering everyone else, but it's definitely not me. So I think for me, yeah, I think at the top of my head, I would say Carrie.
Carrie, okay. That's the first time. But that's a good one. Actually, I had my Carrie moments growing up too. So yeah, I think a lot of us did in high school.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I think that's why like that character, or that film still holds up, because I think the story of bullying is so universal to people, that it happens to everyone. Like at some point in everyone's lives, like you get bullied, and I think the film just takes it to the extreme, but I think that's why it still holds up to this day.
All right, the second question. Okay, it's an easy one. What iconic horror movie would you like to reboot?
Ooh, reboot. I don't know, because I kind of don't like reboots. However, but if I was gonna do a reboot, I would probably do. Okay, I feel like this movie does not need a reboot. Like it's
Okay.
amazing as it is, and it's like a great stand. It stands on its own. But I would do, just because I feel like it would be so much fun, the movie Wreck. Um, it's like a Spanish kind of found footage horror film. Takes place in Spain. It's about like a news reporter who follows like the fire department into an emergency scenario, and like there's like zombies, and so I would say Wreck. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend you check it out.
I just wrote it down. Now, what would your spin on the reboot be?
Yeah, so I would do it. I would do it in Chicago. I would change the setting. I would do it in like in modern times, I would do it with yeah, just like a more urban setting. Like for me, like I would think like, what would happen if a news reporter from Chicago like actually like went into an emergency situation into a school or something like that. Like what would the 2023 version of like of zombies that are from Chicago like look like, and how would they act? So probably something around there.
That's a good one. So, Ricardo, where can everyone find you, my friend?
Yeah, so I always recommend folks to check me out on Instagram. My handle is 3am Films X on Instagram. You can also find me on YouTube. You can also check out 3am on YouTube right now.
And the link will be in my description. Yep.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, check out the link. And go watch 3am. It's just 5 minutes, so it doesn't take too much of your time. And feel free to comment and let me know your thoughts, because I just like love hearing from everyone. So yeah, those two places are mainly where I'll be.
Awesome. Ricardo, thank you for coming on, my friend. It's been an absolute blast. When you get into work, so 3am, I would love to have you back on and talk about it, man.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I'm excited when that happens. So thank you so much, Travis, for having me.
No problem, my friend. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.